Get loose. What is shaking, y'all? Episode 140, Golden Mike Live. Golden Mike Live, 140. Do you know why we've had 140 of these Golden Mike Lives?
That is super impressive and absolutely amazing. And holy, you are changing some lives, friend.
Oh, thank you. But do you know the actual reason why we've had 140 of them?
Because you like to do them and people watch?
I do like to do them, people watch. That's a good guess, but wrong. The answer is no one can cancel me. I produce my own show. Baby.
Yeah, you
do. Where did she go? She ran off on me.
Close the blinds so the dogs don't bark.
The dogs are totally barking on today's episode 140. We've got a return guest, and I'm so stoked about this. Our guest today, two-time international best-selling author, a mompreneur, mental health advocate, energy reader, spiritual badass, founder of the Chakra Academy and the magical mastermind. I had magical mystery tour here for some reason.
Do you want to know what that's totally cool to you? I'm a big Scooby-Doo fan, so let's
Thank you. So she know that. She knows it's Scooby-Doo. Making sure that my vocals are coming through. Can you hear me on the other side today? You can hear me?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
They can.
Perfect. So we've got more important than all those things. She's like my sister from another mister. Tamara Arnold. Always amazing having you book and back, and the one person that I would ever trust to host the show, Tamara Arnold.
Yes, even when it doesn't happen.
Even when it doesn't happen.
Out there.
She is the one person that I trust with this. Now, here's the big thing, y'all. At some point in your life, for those of you who consider yourselves journeymen and journeywomen, even if you don't feel like you're on a journey, you know you're making some sort of progress. There comes a time where we hit, I wouldn't call it a barrier, but we hit a perceived illusionary place, and that we have to cross it to keep going. It's called the blind leap. And Tamara is here to talk about this idea of the blind leap today. Tamara is I'm hoping that's what we're going to talk about today. Yes?
I would really like that, since that's, the book that's coming out in June. So let's do that.
Okay, amazing. For those of you who are from the Tamara camp, my name is Marc Cordon, founder of Make Money Coaching. More importantly, the chief disruptive officer of the Joy Revolution. And more important than that, I'm just simply a person who asks on a daily basis to my friends, to myself, to my clients, how happy are you today? And also, how much are you living in joy and purpose and meaning today? So Tamara, you know that if you come on the show, that's the first thing that I ask you. How are you doing with all that stuff today? The happiness, the joy, the meaning. How are we living today?
Woo! So good. Only because I just finished my developmental edits on Sunday, and my house sold firm in 4 days yesterday, friends.
Oh, we may have broken the scale then. You might have gone over 11 on this one.
Yeah, for sure I did, for sure.
Okay. Congratulations on all of that. Now, for those of you watching live or the replay, if you want to scream your eyeballs out, you feel free to do it. Or if you're just living good, you're feeling happy and you're living in full meaning today, don't let society tell you that status quo is enough. We're living above it. Hit that heart. Hit that heart, baby. Let us know that you're alive. Let us know that you're... Beat it fast. Beat that heart fast. Let us know that you're alive. Yeah, there you go, Tanae. Love hearing from you. They're coming alive this Tuesday morning. Yeah, it's because you can't stop doing the dance moves.
I know. I feel like Arsenio Hall.
You're unbelievable. Now, here's the deal. A lot of people think that the positive psychology stuff is 24/7 shits and giggles, Taco Tuesday, every single day. And today is Taco Tuesday. So they think that Taco Tuesday's every single day. They think that Tamara is riding across the universe, right, on Pegasus, delivering Skittles as she goes, she crosses the sky. No, that's not what positive psychology is all about.
I really like the visual,
Though it would be and what's funny is that you ride Pegasus like it's a bronco. Like you're trying to tame that wild steed. So no, that's not what positive psychology is about, right, Tanae? It's about the ups and the downs and the all-arounds of life, right? I love Tal Ben-Shahar. He's a positive psychology professor who goes and says this: if you're happy 24/7, you're one of two things. Number one, you're dead. Or number two, you're a sociopath, baby. Life is meant to have those ups and downs. So if you're feeling it right now, if you're feeling a little bit off, that's cool too. This button will let us know that you're just living your life and your heart beats just like Tamara and mine. And then maybe one day you're going to be on a platform like this telling your story, inspiring a lot of people. So keep that in mind. Finally, another button down there. I'm just going to say what it does. It represents hope. If you are hopeful like Tamara is today, like I am today, stretch out, and get ready to give the wow face of wow faces. What does that wow face look like, Tamara? Home Alone! Okay. All that aside, you've been on the show multiple times, and every single time you've come on the show, you've talked about something different. And I'm not going to call it the blonde leap. I'm going to call it the blind leap. What is your story when it comes to blind leaps, Tamara?
Well, and it's interesting because the blind leap story for me started really young because, I decided, I don't know why I decided this, but heck yeah, I was like anything that was based on what our parents taught us from what they knew. So, what was their life story? What were they told to do? How did they live their life that they were imparting onto us? I just decided to do the polar opposite of every single one. And so right from the time that I was 17 years old, I took my first blind leap by deciding to go on a 1-year Rotary exchange as an exchange student to Brazil. Right? A blind leap is simply when you have absolutely no way or no understanding or no memory, conscious or unconscious, that you can formulate an idea of what the experience is going to be like, and you do it anyway. You just make the decision to go all in and you jump. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first one. And then there's been like a collection, because once you do, like, that's so funny because the first one will feel like the hardest thing you've ever decided to do in your life. You will like ponder it. You will live in limbo land. You are like, oh my God, am I to do all the things? But then once you make one blind leap, it's like they just keep coming.
So what does a blind leap technically look and feel like? It's like, for example, is it just randomness? Like, I'm going to pick up one day and go to the other side of the country. Like, is it that? Is it like...
I think that a blind leap, again, because if we're going to get into neurology a little bit, right? We all have a memory bank in which it holds all the people, the events, the experiences that we know that we can call upon. Think of it like a database. And so, when you're making any decision in your life, you're going to go through and collect all of these memories and kind of like flip through like a Rolodex and be like, okay, this feels really safe because I can remember it happening here to this person, this friend, this parent. Even if you heard a story, your brain can't even like decipher whether it truly happened to you or it happened to your friend's father's grandmother, right? As soon as the story's been told to you, it still becomes a collection of a memory that you can associate to and say, oh, this has been done before, therefore I can do it as well. Right. So the blind leap is more about when there is no previous thought process or pattern that you can correlate back to that says, I can do this because I know that I'm going to be okay. The blind leap is really, I've never done this. I have nothing to like put into this, future idea or vision other than my own imagination. And when you create it in your own imagination, in some way, you are creating the memory in the data bank, which is part of what making the blind leap successful is all about, right? Yeah. And so you're just deciding with nothing else to just do something you have never done, get outside your comfort zone, and just be wild, be crazy, and do something that's for you, not what somebody else wants you to do.
Now, there seems to be some sort of mechanism still that is drawing you to take this leap. It's not as random as you think. That's what I would like. First impression of the blind leap is that it's not as random as you think. It may be random to the rest of the world, but there's some sort of navigation system inside of you that's saying, "Yo, you have to do this right now."
So my belief, which kind of has always been my belief on that one, is that we're born knowing. We're born, we chose our physical human bodies. We chose, this lifetime or this lifespan for a particular purpose or reason, experience, whatever it was that we were coming here to do. So, we are born into a perfect body with a perfect existence, with a perfect idea, with a perfect knowing of what we are here on this earth to do. And then as we're growing up, we kind of get pulled away from that over time.
We forget it.
We forget it. Or we are told it's not okay, right? We're told that you can't do a business with that. Don't be so, get your head out of the clouds. You got to be responsible, whatever it is. But we start the path away from where it was that we were put on this earth to be in, right? Like whatever that may be, for each of us, it's different. But there's a point of peak discomfort, right? There's a point of peak discomfort where, whether it's you watch a movie, you have a conversation with a friend, you're watching fireworks, you don't know when it's going to happen, but it happens. And it's like this reawakening, this awareness within you that, what am I doing? Isn't there something more? Is there something that I'm meant to be doing? Even if you have, and this is the hardest part, you have everything that everyone else thinks they want. Yep. Right? Like you have the perfect life, you have the perfect relationship, you have the kids, you've checked the boxes, you've done this, and now you're awakening to this feeling or this nudge that there is something bigger for you, something that you were meant to be doing, and you're like, shit, what do I do? Like, you know what I mean? Like I have everything in place. I thought I'd gone through, got good grades, graduated university, met my partner, did all that. So shouldn't I be happy?
And you're check the boxes.
I'm not feeling as happy as I should.
Yeah. So talk to me about points of peak discomfort in your life and how those turned into blind leaps.
So a peak discomfort was, so I moved out when I was 16 to get you to the place that I moved to. Even Brazil was where I went, right? So like how I got myself to Brazil was, growing up around mental illness, and anyone who's watched the show previously will know that story really, really intensely. And I mean, it's what my first book's about. And, I was constantly trying to make everybody better. And so my discomfort was, I need to run away from this because I'm losing myself in being everything for everyone else. And so I don't know how, because I actually signed up to go to Brazil the first year when I was 16, and I lived with my mom, and their exact words were, because we were codependent, "You're too close to your mom, we think you'll come home." That following year, I moved out when I was 16. I lived on my own with my sister at 17, and that was the year I got accepted to go to Brazil, was because I had broken the connection with, my mom enough that they could see that I could go away for that time and be self-sufficient and all right. And it's funny because even though I went to Brazil, there were bets. Like everybody had a bet on me on how long I could actually last. Nobody believed that I could stay the entire year. And point me. Yeah, I did. Boom.
Now you okay, for those of you tuning in, watching live or the replay, we're talking about this idea of blind leaps, and Tamara so eloquently using her own story to show how sort of she was in this point of peak discomfort. She was losing her identity, she losing her idea of self, and she was getting called to go to like a place like Brazil, right? And like even as she's getting called, like all her family and friends are making bets about when she's going to crash and burn, like over there in Brazil. Now, you didn't quite know what you were going to get out of that experience. You just knew you had to go there.
I just knew I had to go.
Now in the post, when you were returning from Brazil, what was the result of that blind leap that you made?
So I really want to make a note because, I'm going to go a little bit deeper here and say if I hadn't gone to Brazil, I probably wouldn't have been likely to break the generational patterns that have been continuing in my family and my life for I don't even know how long. It has been longer than I can actually put my memory to. So that blind leap was essential in the fact that I was able to become independent, away from my family, free to create a sense of self that nobody else in my family has ever done. Like, I come from a home where my mom was afraid to drive on the highway. My sister has agoraphobia. Like, we don't just leave, right? Yeah. Like, people don't actually leave St. Catharines, let alone where I live, and jump on a plane and go halfway across
North America,
right? And so that created a big, giant, open part of me that I would later tap into. Once I got home, and this is a huge conversation that nobody talks about, when you go away for a year, you have this expectation or this understanding when you get off the plane, things are going to be the same. Things are not the same. No. Right? So...
Well, let's talk about this. I mean, you're talking about a big one here. You're talking about a big one, breaking the generational patterns, right? And like, and I don't know if you how much you stayed in contact with your family, but how much disruption did it cause when you went to Brazil? Because I mean, I coming from a family of multi-generational patterns, right? I've had different coaches say multiple things. Like, for example, I had one coach that said, you must disavow for your family. And I was like, it ain't going down. It's not going down like that. Like, I can't disavow, but also at the same time, like every coach that I've had that talked about breaking generational patterns have said there will be some major disruption amongst everybody when one person does that. What was that like with your family when you picked up and went?
So the disruption on the level of that it disturbed my family didn't occur until like 3 years ago, right? Me being away, we were still we were in contact with each other, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. I sent letters, they sent letters. I wrote in my journal. I let them read my journal when I got home so that they could live through the experience that I had had. Like we were still fairly close, but the problem was when I came home, like when I left, I was living with my mom. When I came home, my sister had a boyfriend and a friend living with us, right? So there was like a whole other dynamic that I walked off the plane to that it was like I was struggling to fit into. And this would begin the cycle of, the discomfort of, wait a minute, I don't fit in here. I'm not part of all of this. I'm not like everyone else.
So I'm guessing it felt like a culture shock coming back.
It was beyond a culture shock. There's even some things I wish I could say that I can't say about coming home because it was so different.
The guard dog will bite you if you say
I know.
The guard dog will bite you. No, that's really interesting in terms of knowing the reason when you came back. Oh, this is what that must have been like. Now, I wanted to talk about this. There's millions of people who literally watch this show, and dozens of them may be feeling the need to take a blind leap right now, right? And I'm sure many of them are being told you're fucking crazy if you do this, right? What are some things to think about when it comes to making the blind leap or deciding to make the blind leap, or what are some different ways that we can think about it so that we can make a decision on it?
So I'm going to give a couple scenarios, right? So of course I use my own experience because that's the greatest. And then I have clients who do this all the time, right? Yeah. So when Ethan was at his peak illness and I couldn't get anyone to watch him, I had to make a blind leap, which was quitting a job in order to create a business. So I was an accidental entrepreneur when I decided to launch my personal training business at home to be home with my son.
Okay.
right? I didn't know anything about what that was going to be like, right? The blind leap of becoming an author is also considered a blind leap, right? You have no idea how to write a book. You don't know how to get your mission out into the world. It's scary. I quit all my other jobs to do that. And then you have people who are consistently in discomfort in their jobs. Like I said, these people who have what everybody else would look at them and go like, oh my God, you're so lucky you have everything. And they're just like, I really don't want to put a slot on the blind leap and say like, this is what it looks like. It's just a place of discomfort that you know something has to change and you don't know what it looks like and you don't know what to do about it and you've got to make a decision. And so to go into a few of the pieces of the blind leap, because that's, I know what is the first and foremost, like, I don't care who you are, where you are, what you're doing, what blind leap you're making. The first thing for anyone is a return to yourself, right? We've lived in a world of external validation where, you know, we're looking for the approval and the praise and the gold stars from everywhere but inside our own being. And so, you know, if you're asking people like, hey, do you think it's a good idea if I quit my job? What would you do? Or any of those kinds of things, right? Because you do. We all want to know that we're going to be okay if we do this, right? But the problem is no one else has the right answer, right? They're only using their perception to tell you what they think that you should or shouldn't do. And the only way you're going to get the truest of answers is if you ask yourself and you ask your heart and you ask, you know, those parts of yourself that are in discomfort and say like, will this make this better? And if the answer is a hell yes, then that's when the rest of the communication begins. You know, and I know that people are always, you know, proponents of meditation, but I can tell you from everything, like, and I'm not saying you have to sit on a yoga mat or in a meditation pillow, but I can promise you that, I'm sorry, but you can go for walks, stare at fire. There's many different ways, but the fact of the matter is that our thoughts are constantly raging at us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's never a reprieve. They will never go away. And so in order to have a deeper conversation with ourselves, we need to be willing just to sink a little deeper below them, rise above them, still them if you can, which I don't know anyone who can, so don't even try. That's your main goal. But like, you know what I mean? You want to get to a place of silence. And what I kind of like the analogy that I use is if I live near Niagara Falls, if I had a desire or a want or something that I wanted for my life and I stood at the top of Niagara Falls and I threw that pebble into the water, it's raging down there. I would never see it hit, you know, the pool, right? Versus at the cottage, before everybody gets up, if I walk out to the beach and, you know, there's beautiful fog over the water and you pick up a pebble and you throw it into a still pond, you'll see the ripples going for however long, right? And that desire has much greater capacity to come true when you've sent it out in a still place than if you're just tossing all this stuff in Niagara Falls.
Yeah,
that makes a sport.
That makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, I think, you know, I was like, oh, yeah, that's easy. Step number one. But I think about it, I'm like, including myself, how much I live outside of the body, right? And how much I depend on sort of the illusionary external world to give me data, you know, and how that would make sense that if I'm depending on, you know, certain sensory things and I'm not paying attention to other sensory things, that I'd get caught in the illusion, the trappings of things. And so really jumping back into your body. Now, I think it's really interesting that you talk about thoughts too. Like it's one thing to come back to your body, and then it's another thing to like deal with the energy of thoughts. Like, what would you say about that?
Well, I think that there becomes an awareness. Awareness is such an important word, right? Because like I said, when the first step of coming back in is to realize that we have Captain Obvious living in our head. And Captain Obvious is going to narrate everything that you do. And so it's going to be like, oh, you woke up, it's sunny. You're cold. Like it's like whatever it is. And it's like, why am I having the obvious thought? Then you're adding, that's one layer of the thought, right? Then you add in the illusion or the ego or, you know, your fear self. And the fear self, if you have never called it out, thinks it's driving the vehicle of your life.
Yeah.
The minute you see it and it sees you, then you have the opportunity to kick it to the passenger seat and become the driver. But until you call it out, it's just like, yeah, I got a free for all. I'm going to drive around the block every day and come back to the same place. She's never going to know because
Yeah.
I'm in control here. But when you have the awareness, right, to say, I see the fact that I am driving around the block and I have these thoughts that I know aren't serving me anymore and they're no longer valid, because the thought in itself, I call them many different things, right? We have the thought that is what is the rabbit hole, right? So you create one false outcome. So you say, oh my goodness, if I do this, this is going to happen. And then from one, it's like they multiply. They're like rabbits. And then you have it becomes two thoughts. Oh, well, if that happens, then these things are going to happen. And then it spreads like a plague. And then you're down this major construction of untruths or falsities. Can I tell a story? Because it's my favorite story. And my husband, or do you want to ask another question?
Of course.
So
I want to hear the story.
Okay, so my husband gives me the best material ever in the history of the land. I'm so glad I married him, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have content some days. And so we were moving, and we had this big, ugly futon eyesore in the basement, and I wanted it out. The realtor came, was like, "Can you move this?" And my husband's like, "Nope, it is unmovable. There's no room in the storage unit. It has to stay." And I was like, I don't understand why it has to stay, right? And he's like, "Well, it's not going to fit up my son's stairway to get into his house. It's not going to fit in the car. It's not all going to do these things." Weeks go by where it's not getting moved. One morning, it's pictures for our house before it's getting sold, and I just know it's going. I just feel it in every ounce of my being. It's kind of fun to be that person. So I call my son. It's 9 a.m. He's 21 years old, and he answers. He's like, "Yeah, I can totally help move the photon today." And I'm like, "Oh man, we got something good happening here. We're brewing." So I go into the kitchen. I'm like, "Jeff, let's go. Let's do this." And again, it's not going to fit up Ethan's stairs. And I'm like, "Of course it is." And he's like, "It's not going to fit in the car." And this is the big thing. How do we know unless we try? Mm-hmm. Right? So it turns out that when my son came over, the frame came down in 20 minutes and moved easier than anything else in the entire house. But he had created this monster about how moving his futon was going to be the worst experience of his life, and was willing to not even begin the process. Right? And so how many times do we stop ourselves in truth? How many times do we stop ourselves in anything in the day by simply creating an outcome that doesn't exist?
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, you jump to that conclusion, and with the if then crazy, that's what I wrote it down, is the if then crazy. But you tend to become so neurotic about the if and the then that you don't even try, right? You don't even try to do something that the result of it was relatively easy. It was relatively easy. That you probably were joking about it and stuff like that.
Well, I haven't stopped joking about it, to tell you the truth. That was only last Wednesday. So 7 days of
Well, I mean, and we think about how many times in our lives, whether it be professional leaps, whether it be personal leaps, that we're not even gonna take that chance. We're not even going to take any risks around leaping, because we've had so many if and then scenarios that end in catastrophe that are just absolutely just kind of made up, right? So I think that it's super, super, super cool. By the way, this is already a practical woo book. I know what's going on here. I'm sniffing it out.
Wait till you talk about the magical equation, which is next.
Yes, let's talk about the magical equation.
Right? To me, for those who have never met me before, I am highly tapped into my spiritual team. We'll call it that. And so I receive information and messaging, like downloads, channels, whatever you want to call it, on the daily. And, as long as I'm out of my own head, they're just flying in. And so the magical equation was something that I received as being, if everybody could just follow this equation, everything that they ever desire in their life will come true.
Wow.
Right? Anyone? Yes. Yes. Right? And so it's got 3 parts to it. And the 3 parts are belief. Now, belief, as easy as it sounds, I can believe that I can be successful. I can believe that I can find my soulmate. I can believe that I can have healthy, happy relationships. It all sounds easy. But the fact of the matter is, if you cannot paint a mental picture of it occurring in your future, whether it's through imagination, future self, like planning, visualization, then you don't believe it. You're placing a word out that says, I believe it, but you're not actually believing it. So true belief is knowing that you can paint this vivid future of your desire and that it has the potential to come true. So that's true belief.
So does that come with clarity as well? Like, do you have to have a certain amount of clarity, or is it just belief that, like a generalized belief that I know this is going to happen and I'm grateful for it?
Right? It's truly that simple. Like if I could get the world to live in a simple place, I would, because I think that we spend so much time complicating things when it doesn't even, nothing is complicated, zero. Like truly, like, you know, if you were to talk to yogi masters or like the Dalai Lama or like all of the people who've transcended all of the thoughts and all of the things, they're like, why are you so worked up, man? You know what I mean? Like everything is so simple. You know, having the belief, and I say this with great love because I didn't have belief for a long time. I couldn't see a future. I was so caught in mayhem and chaos and fear and all those kinds of things. I think that we create this thing that believing is easy because we have crossed that path into. But I know a lot of people who can't dream. I know a lot of people who can't utilize their imagination to paint a picture of their future and visualize it. So I think that that's something to hold space for. And I honor that for the people who can't, but it's really important, even if you start small and you just start with, simple things like, I believe that, my house can be calm and nobody's going to fight. And you paint that picture of, people coming in from work and there's no anger and there's no frustration. And you can begin with something as small as that. And then when you see that start to play out, then you can create bigger and bigger visualizations, dreams, and beliefs.
Yeah. That's awesome too, because you do have it starts inside of you, right? So it's not just like, I'm just going to imagine shit and then shit will happen based on my imagination. Like there really is a certain amount of congruence with what is it that you're seeing going on inside of you and what are some of the beliefs that you're letting go of, right? And then after that, then you have this internal belief that begins to take shape in the external world.
You can even say it's a vibration, right? Your vibration shifts and then you start to bring in the frequency of the vibration that you are then emitting, right?
You say it's a vibration.
You could. You're all just giant radios.
Okay, so let's talk about this second part of the magical miracle formula equation. The first part is really believing, and the simple yet difficult art of it. What's the second thing?
Trust. And there's 3 components to trust. And goodness knows if, I'm still a work in progress on trust, and especially the 3 different components of that, because, you need to be able to trust yourself. Know that no matter what you're doing, it is exactly what you're meant to be doing. Right? Mm-hmm. The other one is trusting in something far greater than you, because we cannot be fully responsible for everything at all times in every moment. And so we need to know that we can give things away that don't belong to us, and that something bigger than us has our back and is, supporting us on that journey. Yeah. And the third is trusting others, because if you've been burned and hurt, or, we've had people steal from us, all those kinds of things, it creates a fear. And so we need to be able to rise above that and trust others on our path, that they will be our mentors, our guides, our collaborations and things like that. So full trust embodied in all parts is oneself, collaborations, and whatever it is that faith that you call to.
Oh, now let's say that you're a person that has been burned by trust, right? Whether it be self, others. What's one way to get back into the modality of trusting again? Because it's one of the 3 legs of the equation now.
Practice.
Practice?
Practice.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? You have to be willing. I remember right before I met my husband, I've had a really I sought love in all the wrong places, for sure, right? Like I did not know what true love was, coming from a place where I always felt like I had to care give and there was expectations. Yeah. And so I had just made the decision that it would be better to put myself out there and be hurt again than not put myself out there, right? Gotcha. Because I didn't want to be unwilling to receive that love. So I had to be willing to be hurt again in order to have the opportunity to find the right, so was it always done well? Does it always go the way we
Yeah.
want or expect it? Not always, right? But we start to see the world differently as, okay, what was I meant to learn from this, as opposed to why did this happen to me?
Yeah, that sounds like a semi-calculated blind leap that you made when you went out to when you were ready to meet your now husband, because for someone to be like, these are the patterns, these are the patterns, these are the patterns, these are the patterns, leap, and I know that it's gonna land differently this time. That's pretty hardcore.
It was very nervous and scary,
Yeah.
right? But that's how you know you're doing the right thing. Is
Yeah.
if you have some form of discomfort, then you believe me, you're on the right path. And you're like,
So give me number 3: belief, trust, and what's the third part of the equation?
inspired action. And I say inspired action because there's action. There's like, okay, I need to do this in order to get this result, which is not you actually doing it because you feel inspired. It's doing it because you feel like you have to, or it's what everybody else is doing, or, that's the checklist or whatever, right? Action is action. But inspired action is, again, tapping into your physical being, your body, your knowing, tapping into whatever your faith is. It's, you have the belief, you have this trust, and now you know what the steps are supposed to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
I often say that, there's coaches aplenty. There's so many different people saying this is how you do it. And there are a million ways to do it. And I say, learn the one that feels right and then personalize it to be your own path. And then you take the inspired action because it feels good, not like you're putting on somebody else's clothing and going out to try and pick up some people, right?
Mimicry. It's not mimicry. It truly is coming from a place that starts at the core you.
And of course, and the other piece is like, we can't stand at because I truly believe procreation is with something far greater than us. And we're in a partnership. We're like basically co-founders of a business together. Right. And so if I'm standing there and I'm like, I think you got it. You just do your job. I'm just going to this is how I do my side of the business. You're not going to go very far. No one wants that business partner, the business partner that doesn't show up and, do something every day to shift it forward. And that's the other part of inspired action is that you understand that you're in a business partnership with something, whether it's somebody else legitimately, whether it's spirit, source, God, whatever, you know what I mean? Like you have to take action or else you're not really doing your part of the business.
I love it. So in terms of the magic equation, the magical musical equation, belief, trust, and inspired action. If you missed any part of it, that's what replays are for, baby. So you get to see that. But that's what the book is about.
Yes.
Right? The book is about that. So let's go here for a second with the book. Let's go here for a second with inspired action and all this kind of stuff. I just, as a non-woo, a layman.
Bullshit.
As a non-woo layman who's just using positive psychology right now, this goes with positive.
Call you out on.
This is also positive psychology at its best, because it is about like there is a certain amount of agency that comes with belief, trust, that comes with sort of the confidence that you have in yourself and the confidence that you have in the environment, and with inspired action, it's moving upon things that are internally motivated, right? That's where the inspiration comes from. That makes complete and total sense. And you know what? It's probably one of the most simple ways that I've seen it being thrown out there before. Now, what are some examples, whether it be in the book or whether it be in other people, where you've seen people take the blind leap and how belief, trust, and inspired action got them to the other side, or didn't?
Well, just recently, somebody that I was working with, right? She worked in a really good job at a university, working in different departments, helping, bring awareness for sexual awareness, all these different things. But she knew that she wanted to do it in a bigger way. And of course, when she started working with me, most of the people that work with me do eventually quit their jobs because they're coming to me in that discomfort. That's the reason why the book was written, because I have a lot, like I've done it for myself, but I've also helped hundreds of people do it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how the formula gets laid out. And so it's a whole series of layers to work through, but she ended up leaving her job. She now has an online program. She is facilitating workshops all over the Niagara. She's been hired as a keynote speaker for 2020 at an event, like, you know what I mean? Because she decided to listen to the discomfort, reach out to get the person she knew that she could solve the problem with, and made the leap. And of course, like, I want to just call awareness, you guys. It's the scariest thing you do. Like, it is really not like you just decide one day, I'm going to make this blind leap. You're thinking about it for some time. You're planning it
Yeah.
out. You're thinking, how am I going to do financially? Will I be able to support myself? Will people think I'm crazy? Will, I lose friends? Like, there's a lot that goes into it. And those thoughts and those emotions and those feelings are what that, returning to self, doing the work, creating the confidence to do it without, all the other things.
Oh, absolutely. George Andriopoulos is tuning in. Hey, everyone. George, you're late to the party, brother. So stick with us and listen to some amazing stuff, because we're talking about this magical equation. You know what? And I think that it's now that it's laid out, and now that I'm where I'm at in my life, Tamara, like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, that's pretty simple. But I'm thinking back to 7 years ago when I had been in higher education for like 13 years, right? And there was a part of me that was like, literally, I remember, like, if someone was like, what are you thinking about? I'm like, someone is telling me that I'm bigger than this. Like, I'm bigger than all of this. There's something larger that I'm meant for. And I go back and turn back on itself, and I'm like, that's crazy talk. That's me acting like a maniac, by thinking that, like, I've got a decent job here, they're paying for my PhD, they're doing all this stuff, but also at the same time, like, so unhappy and unfulfilled. Everything was so, like, treading water, like upstream, like, and if you were to tell me, like, it could be that much more simpler, you could do all the things that you loved in higher education, I wouldn't have trusted them at the time. I would have been like, you're a total, like, snake oil salesperson, right?
You're wackadoo is what you would have said. I know
Yeah,
it.
it was my if then thinking, like you were talking about. Like, it'll be a catastrophe if I leave. It'll be a catastrophe, And I think one of the things that's really interesting is the day after I left, I booked a bunch of clients and had my website up already. Like, it was that fast to get things done, and it was condo, right? We condo space, put everything in a condo pile, and then we threw it away, what we didn't need, and there was all this space to create next. It was to me, it was one of the biggest miracles in my life, to be able to be working 1 week at one thing and then to be my own entrepreneur the next week. I'm not saying that everything was solved, but it was really cool.
It's so cool. And I think that, but when, again, we don't have the visual or the memory bank to go
Yeah.
back, these have been successful. And you got to remember, like, for the new entrepreneur as well, they're looking at those who have already achieved great success and saying, like, whoa, that's a lot. Like, how do I go from where I am to where they are?
Yeah.
And it seems like if I'm here and this desire or dream I have is way over here, and I don't have the capacity to understand what the first step, second step, third step is, then I might not step. And that was the next part of the whole blind leap, is understanding clarity comes with movement, right? We're not meant to know. We have to start doing some form of steps before we start to understand and develop and grow into who we are actually here to serve. And we just have to be willing to start with where we are, who we are, what we have, and then while you're walking the path, more and more information presents itself to you. Right?
Absolutely. What would you? I mean, I still see it as one of the biggest things is the self saying, like, almost in denial of not taking the blind leap. What would you say to that right now? Like, in terms of like, okay, I want to take the blind leap, but come on, there's so much stuff I have to lose with this. I'm not going to take it. And it's like year number 6 of them saying this for a while. And they're losing sleep now, but they're probably staying up at night thinking about it now.
Right. So it's, again, you have to get really real with your internal self, right? So like my first question that came to mind was, what are you so afraid of? Right. And so if you are afraid of something, fear will always be like he's a wily little bugger, and he will haunt your dreams and sleep in your closet and like jump out and do all those kinds of things, right? So you have to be willing to look each fear in the face. You need to write the list of what am I so afraid of, right? And write it all out on paper and then get real. And this was one of the things to write the book is like, I wrote out all my fears. What if I lose the house? What if this happens? What if that happens? And all of the fears came out, right? And then I was like, okay, what if we do lose the house? What's the worst part of that?
What's the worst thing that can happen?
What's the worst thing? And so really play each fear down to and if you can get to that place of like, okay, these aren't really as bad as I thought they were, then you have a much calmer internal space to really make the decision from. Because anything in, distraction or done in, what's the word, urgency or panic or anything isn't a truly strong decision.
Yeah, I love it. How are we going to, the book's not done yet. I want it. I want this book. How do we get our pause on this book? Is there a pre-order? Like, what can we do?
I love you. You know how to ask the right questions, because I would love, there is a way to get an advanced reader copy before anyone else does in any other way. Like if you want, because I didn't even tell you the rest of it. Like there's so much more information to go through, which I know. So just send me a message. I love to invite you into the book launch team. And that way you will have it in your hands before anyone else in the entire world does. You'll be able to utilize it, implement it, honor it, hold space for it. I'll hold space for you while you're reading it. It's this beautiful, magical pool of amazing.
So in the show notes, we have the way to get in contact with Tamara, multiple ways, including website, email, Facebook. So don't abuse it.
Totally
Ask for it by name. Ask for it by name. The Blind Leap.
It's a cool name. It's a cool name. I like.
Do we have the book cover done yet?
No.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Blind Leap.
The Blind Leap right now is like how to jump into the unknown and create the business of your dreams. And my editor was like, too long subtitle. And I was like, geez, okay. So I got to even and it's such a fun process. And I can tell you as a third-time author, the process doesn't change. It's still as stressful and as like, pulling up your own crap and, it's still a deep dive into your own being to write a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't believe this is the third time you're on my show. I cannot believe how much you've evolved since I've last met you. Do you feel it? You are quite you are quite the evolver and quite, I wouldn't say the phoenix, but you definitely are the evolver. I've loved every moment of this, and you're going to come back on the show. I'm still a little bit upset because you invited me to a podcast and then you dropped the ball on me and you wrote a book and now we have no podcasts.
I know.
There's going to be the Marc and Tamara podcast.
I know. Yeah.
Got dropped. But maybe we'll get back to it one day. You manifested it. It happened. And then it didn't happen.
We just keep going on each other's shows until we make it happen.
Let's get on each other's shows till it does happen. The Big Leap, ask Tamara for it.
Blind Leap.
The Blind Leap, I'm sorry. The Blind Leap. The Big Leap is something else.
Yeah, by
and the Blonde Leap is something else. This is the Big Leap. The Blind Leap.
The blind leap, when you don't see where you are jumping you are blind to where your feet are landing. Yes, the blind leap.
You can get an advanced reader's copy if you're willing to really be a champion for this idea. Be a champion for the hard work that Tamara's been putting in. You know what comes up now. It's the golden mic that comes from the ceiling and stops in front of you, Tamara. The golden mic can translate into every language all across the world, which means all sentient beings will be listening to you once this golden mic is flipped, my friend. So, Tamara, with all that you've said, all the new experiences, all the new downloads, what is it that you have to say to the world? Your golden mic is live now.
Okay, so as I just always use whatever comes to mind as the first thought, and that is, you guys, seriously, just start moving, because a small step every single day covers a lot of distance over time. And so, even if you were to think of where you are to where that big giant, I think of Rachel Hollis is going to be on stage with, Tony Robbins. And she wrote in her journal for 3 years, I'm on stage with Tony Robbins. That was a 3-year, but every day she took a step. And it's just like, I have this goal of being a Hay House author. And it's just one small step, just one tiny step every day covers a lot of the distance.
I want you to feel how heavy that golden mic is. Just take that golden mic. Feel how heavy that is. Yeah. Now smash that golden mic, Tamara Arnold. Smash it. Smash it. Now double donkey kick it. Smash it with your feet. Look, you broke your actual mic.
I did. I pulled the back out. I was smashing.
You're unbelievable. We're definitely going to have you back, and maybe we might do a podcast or two. I wish you nothing but love and success and light. Did I say light? Shit.
Yeah.
Love and success and darkness. As you move forward with the book, and probably all the people that you're gonna affect with that book. This is a person moving places. The only person that I'd ever trust to host my show, sitting in front of us. Thank you again. It always moves fast when you're here tomorrow. And here's the final question that Arnold and I have for you. If you're living life to its fullest and you're happy, and you're also living in meaning and purpose, what is your responsibility to change history for the better? Tamara, Marc, episode 140. You can't cancel me. We're out. Take care, everybody. See ya.